A police officer is murdered by criminals, but they have no idea her partner is the most dangerous man in England. Detective Tom, waking up from a nap on the couch, spots thieves attempting to steal a car through his window. Wasting no time, he heads out to confront them. However, his persuasion tactics involve more punches than words. After a beating, he threatens them. If he sees them again, there won't be just a warning. The next day, the media accuses him of assaulting innocent youths, putting the entire precinct in the spotlight. Concerned about Tom's explosive behavior, his superiors send him to a therapy session. But Tom, ever the model of patience, lights a cigarette in front of the counselor. When the counselor intervenes, Tom threatens him and heads back to the station, showing that his social skills could use some refinement. Meanwhile, Officer Elizabeth, demoted to constable after failing a drug test, confides in Tom about her undercover work in the drug world and its repercussions. Tom tries to comfort her, but the atmosphere is as heavy as a noir film. Tom visits Chief Inspector Bruce Roberts, who is still mourning his wife's death. After attempting to cheer him up with a few drinks, the duo is called to investigate the murder of a police officer. With Bruce stepping aside, Acting Inspector Porter Nash takes over the case. Despite some colleagues' prejudices, Tom surprisingly supports Porter, forming an unusual partnership. Elizabeth is approached by a young man nicknamed Metal, who fears his group may have committed a murder. She promises to investigate, and with Tom and Detective Craig Stokes' help, they gather information, even if it involves accepting an unwanted date. Meanwhile, a reporter receives calls from Barry, a killer boasting about eliminating police officers and promising to continue his grim list. Tom and Porter, with help from an informant, track down Barry Weiss, an old acquaintance of Tom. After a visit without concrete evidence, Barry tries to hide incriminating evidence but is followed by Tom's informant, who discovers the killer's stash of macabre trophies. Amid the chaos, Bruce has an epiphany about his self-destructive life while buying drinks. Determined to change, he returns to work, ready to face new challenges. A fun fact, this film was based on a book by Ken Bruin, released in 2002. Bruin wrote a series of stories about Sergeant Tom Brandt and Inspector James Roberts. If I were in Tom's shoes when confronting the thieves, I might have called for backup or approached the situation less aggressively to avoid future complications. However, Tom's determination to protect his community is admirable, even if his methods are questionable. But let's continue with the story. Leaving his house, Bruce realizes Barry is following him. Barry's next target is revealed to be Bruce. At home, Bruce is ambushed by Barry and attacked violently. Bruce, being a police officer, tries to defend himself with a hammer, but Barry overpowers him, delivering fatal blows. After the murder, Barry relaxes by watching TV in Bruce's home, steals his uniform, and calmly leaves. Now dubbed Blitz, Barry calls a reporter, demanding his name appear in the press the next day while bragging about his third murder. Meanwhile, Tom, a close colleague and friend of Bruce, is devastated by the news of his death. Simultaneously, an informant who had been tailing Barry attempts to sell information to the reporter for $50,000, leading him to Barry's car. However, Barry watches from a distance and removes evidence after they leave. Elizabeth visits Craig to check on a wounded man, and he invites her for a drink the following night. Meanwhile, the informant collects the payment from the reporter at a bar, but upon going to the restroom, he encounters Barry, who kills him mercilessly and escapes with the $50,000. The reporter alerts the police to Barry's car, but they find it empty. Tom and a colleague deduce that all of Blitz's victims were officers who had previously arrested Barry, concluding that Elizabeth might be next. After a date, Elizabeth is attacked by Barry but is saved by Metal, who is killed in the struggle. Before Barry can harm Elizabeth again, the police arrive, forcing him to flee. Tom and Porter release Barry's photo to the media, putting pressure on him, which leads to his capture after an intense chase. However, with no concrete evidence, the police are forced to release him after 48 hours of fruitless interrogation. Determined to stop Barry, Tom devises a plan to provoke him, knowing he will seek revenge. During Chief Inspector Bruce's funeral, Barry, disguised in Bruce's uniform, follows Tom to the top of a parking garage. There, Tom and Porter ambush him, disarm him, and explain that with insufficient evidence for a legal conviction, they've decided to take justice into their own hands. Tom shoots Barry with his own gun, making it appear he was another of Blitz's victims. After Barry's death, Tom decides to teach the reporter who had been criticizing him and the police a lesson by releasing dogs to scare him into reconsidering his actions. If I were in Tom's position, I wouldn't have resorted to taking justice into my own hands, as it compromises the integrity of the legal system. Instead, I would have focused on gathering more evidence to ensure Barry's conviction within the law. An interesting aspect of the film is how it explores the limits of morality and justice, questioning how far someone can go to stop a criminal when the system fails. Now, the question remains, do you think Tom's actions were justified, even if they broke the law, to stop Barry? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. For those who enjoyed this movie, I recommend checking out this video about a man who was framed by the mafia and sent to the world's most dangerous prison. Watch it now, and I hope you have an amazing day.
And I gotta tell you, it was perfect. Perfect.